matter who you are, where you are, what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed, the light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul Mastery's Live Well, Live Whole podcast series, where we focus on mind, body, spirit, wellness, fitness, and wholeness. And we also inspire others to integrate polarity into unity consciousness. I'm Marie Mohler, and I'm an author, intuitive, and co-founder of Whole Soul Mastery. And I'm here today with Michelle Thornton, who is a traveler in the ascension journey from a 3D world and paradigm into this 5D new earth paradigm and unity consciousness. She's a therapist, she's an alchemist, and she also dabbles a little bit in light language. And so, Michelle, I want to welcome you today. I'm so grateful to be here with you.
Thank you, Marie. I am absolutely thrilled as well. You know, you're one of the first people I started watching when I was waking up a couple years back, and I remember your voice and your channeling of Mother Mary. And let me tell you, it got me through some nights just hearing some of those channeled messages. So thank you very much. This is one of my first, well, that's actually my second podcast, but it's the beginning of sort of a new way of showing up. So it's a beautiful transition from the matrix and meetings to this beautiful venue where, you know, higher vibrational souls are coming together. And honestly, I've wanted this all along. So, you know, being in the company and sharing space with somebody like you is literally like being home. So thank you. Thank you.
It is a coming home together. And if we, you know, your channel on YouTube is Upgrade in Progress 5D. And what I want to do first is to invite you to share a little bit about your journey from moving from the meetings in the matrix, like you just said, and into this higher vibrational consciousness and place of being inside yourself. Because for our listeners, you know, some might already know this language, but we really are moving from a paradigm of a 3D world where if you can't see it, you don't believe it, right? And there's a lot of separation consciousness where we have almost a division consciousness, where we are separated from ourselves and from each other. And we're coming back into a time, like you said, where it's a coming home. When you come back together and you meet people who are on this spiritual path or this ascension path or this rising into connecting into something bigger than just us, right? And we access our higher selves in that process. No one is really a stranger. Like a friend of mine who's been on some of these podcasts and she's been in the round tables, Renee Tainter, says, a stranger is just family she hasn't met yet. And that's like us coming together in this podcast. And so, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your journey because you express it so well. The authenticity with which you share your messages always touches me. And I'd love to hear more about that because you came out of the 3D world and also made some conscious choices that, you know, shifted some things in your life to really become more of what you feel like you're meant to be at this critical time on the planet. So let us hear the story.
Okay, thanks. So as you said, I spent my professional career as a therapist. My last job, I worked at Head Start. I worked with children. I worked with families. I was a behavioral health coordinator. It was a perfect job for me. I loved working with children. I loved working with parents. I loved teaching staff and parents how to connect with their children so that they had a loving, harmonious relationship. So for the first couple of years, it was going great. And then something started happening. Sometime around, 16 or 17, I stopped loving it. And I could recognize that why I wasn't loving it anymore was because I knew I had a big heart. I went into psychology, I went into counseling. I always wanted to just help people. But what was happening was I felt this divide. I felt this, in that particular job, they were, it was like, I could only spend so much time with the children and with the parents and with the staff and doing the stuff that I love. Because the other part of the time, it was the administrative stuff that you got to be here and you got to do this report and you got to do that. And what I ended up learning was that was the stuff that ultimately just drained me. It was as if the plug was pulled on my tub and it just slowly started draining. So in 2018, my company was going through a huge federal review. And as it got closer, my whole world was squeezing. I could feel it. It was like, I didn't even know if I could make it to that federal review, but I knew I had to because it just wasn't fair to have me replaced at that point. So it was like, I just hung on and hung on and hung on and then did what I needed to do. And then I really wanted to quit, but I didn't have anything set up. Like I wasn't rich. I didn't have this. I didn't know what was going on, but my body and my mind was saying I couldn't go any further. I wasn't happy. Something was happening. So one day I played hooky. I did. I called in. It was after the federal review. I called in sick. I hopped on my Harley. I went to an arboretum, which is an outdoor, I spent the day in nature. And I basically asked the guides, if I could quit my job. It was sort of like, I need help because I can't do this anymore. And I don't know what that means, but I need to take some time off. Am I going to be okay? And I got back on my bike and I was smiling and I was like, okay. I got home. I typed up my resignation. And I handed it to my boss the next day. And I only had enough money in my account for about 2 months, maybe I could probably push it to 3, before I started looking for a job. So that was my plan. That was my plan originally. But what I didn't know was that, so I gave him about a month notice because I was working with children. So I couldn't just do 2 weeks. So I finished out the school year. And then I left and I was only gone for maybe 1 or 2 days. And I talked to one of my old coworkers and they said, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. And then somebody said, well, do you know you can cash in your 401k? And I went, really? No, I didn't know that. So the only reason I bring that up was because I made the decision without the security. The security came after. And to me, that was,
it's so
that to me that was confirmation because to me that became a blessing. As soon as I started listening to my soul, as soon as I said, I need to get this right because something's happening. I can't, I need to straighten shit out because all I had was like love in the world, but yet nothing was coming back. It was like, I didn't feel like I was a victim, but I felt like it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
How could I have such a big heart for everybody, but yet everybody was like, you're this and you're that. I mean, I felt it. So my point is that, so I got that gift. I got enough money. It was like, oh my God, that was like, to me, that was God going, here you go, honey, take some time off. Because that's exactly what I did. And I said to myself, I'm investing this in me. This is my time. I need to listen to my heart and figure out what I need to do. So I took that money, that little nest egg, and I just invested it in myself. And I did that by, recognizing that I needed to take charge of my health. I had gone through health problems. I was on a host of medications and I ditched it all. I ditched all the medications because it was related to my back and pain and depression. And I wanted to just, the medications that they weren't life, you know what I mean? They weren't necessary to, like, it wasn't like a heart medication or anything like that. So it was just symptomatic medication that I could go, I don't need it.
Right.
And so so if I was taking pain medication, I needed to learn to then manage my pain differently. If I'm not going to take pills anymore to mask it, I need to learn how to do it. So I literally made a decision to start taking charge of my body. And I was very stiff and I was overweight at the time. So I literally just started by bending over. I mean, it sounds very simple, but you know, I was starting to get anxious, and I was like starting to, you know, I could feel the pain setting in. And when, you know, you'd normally just pop a pill and you don't pop the pill anymore, you're like, okay, now what? Okay, well, now I got to get up and I got to move my body. Yeah. So then it became that process of really listening. So that's when I started listening to what my body needed. And that sort of segued into, you know, what I was needing emotionally. So I think what I was sharing earlier was, you know, I started these sessions. I started taking care of my body by going, okay, I need to get up. I need to move. I'm going to put on some music that I like. And I'm just going to, you know, start to stretch a little and kind of do some movement. And for me, it was just like yoga. I called it smoga, you know, sort of my own yoga. And then I didn't realize that through sort of just being in that space of listening to my body and paying attention to what I'm stretching in those sessions, and then, you know, kind of breathing slower, because the music that I chose was a softer music. It was Adele. And so it allowed me to just move really slowly, which was what my body needed at the time. And so I naturally segued into meditation. I never set out to meditate. I just sort of accidentally went, holy cow, I'm putting myself into these trances. And I didn't realize it until one day I was like done with a moving session, and I'm just laying on the ground completely flat and in stillness, which is a lot of how yoga sessions end, you know, the dead man's pose and in stillness. But all of a sudden, because of the music I was listening to, my body started moving automatically. And so I realized that I was in this trance, and the only memory I had related to it was a time when I was in a sleep paralysis nightmare, and I was trying to get my partner at the time to wake me up, and I knew that in the nightmare I was screaming to get woken up. And so that's how I knew it was sleep paralysis. So I felt my body moving automatically in this trance, and then I had to start realizing that there was something else, because I originally thought maybe I had some sort of, you know, disease like Parkinson's or some sort of, you know, other kinesis or that automatic movement. But it wasn't, because I picked up on the fact really quickly that it was rhythmic, that it was kind of going, the movements were automatic. So this was like the beginning of what I came to learn was light language. Now, I don't speak it usually because I have headphones on. So for me, the light language and the channeling of the energy of their spirits comes through me as I do the movements and I have the awareness on my body. And then after that, it sometimes segues to emotions where I might have just a major purge. I might be in the middle of just moving, and all of a sudden I'll just start crying, or I'll just start laughing, or some other emotion will just kind of come up or come down. You know, I do a lot of purging where things just come up out of me. And then I have times where I get downloads, you know, whether it's a blissful state of ecstasy or unconditional love or reverence. I mean, I've experienced every download of just unbelievable. I mean, to the point where I'm like overwhelmed with the most positive feeling. I can't even articulate. Like, I'm not worthy. Like, what's happening? I'm not worthy, because it is literally like almost a full body orgasm. I mean, I think they call it Kundalini at times. And I don't know sometimes if it's Kundalini or if it's a download, but I know that there have been sessions where something absolutely amazing, overwhelmingly amazing is happening in my body. And I'm going, whoa, this is, you know, and then it just kind of reverberates.
Right.
And then it might, you know, segue into something else. It's just a constant flow. And something I shared with you earlier too, is that it doesn't always move to the music. Sometimes it does, sometimes it's rhythmic, but I know they're not completely synced, because as the music ends and transitions into something else, the flow keeps going in the manner that it was flowing. But I get this image of being surrounded by, you know, God, angels, Jesus. And when this light language is flowing, I feel like they're very pleased. Like that is exactly what we need to be doing, is expressing that, you know, recognizing that there's energy or something being given to us and it's moving through us. And that expression is like reinforced by that feeling of, yes, you are right where you need to be in that moment right now. And, you know, even in the beginning, as I was, you know, leaving my old job in 2018, I knew that my heart had, you know, just basically broken wide open. And there was no doubt in my mind that that was now calling the shots. So my simple understanding and experience is that from 3D, it's like everybody lives up here, and we all have our own programming, because it comes in through our parents, through our culture, through indoctrination, our religions, education, So everybody's programming is different. And that divide is really, really obvious right now. But 5D consciousness is living from the heart, where it's like we automatically accept and love everybody for where they're at, because we recognize and see the reflection. I see I'm you. I see that you know, you're just exactly where you're at. And I don't care if you're spewing hate in my face. I'm still going to love you. Now, I mean, I understand that now is Christ consciousness, because that's what we know Jesus did. And not like all of a sudden I'm going, holy cow, that's me now. I mean, it always was. I mean, it always was to a degree, but you know, we have the programming, and that's just, so that's what my process was about, was getting rid of all of that stuff so that I could freely be living from the heart and talking from the heart and feeling from the heart, and not have to mask. Yes, that was meant to be a pun. You don't have to mask that to express yourself. And so that, I think that's part of why it is so frustrating, because that pun was really meant to be obvious out there right now. You know, our individual expressions are being covered. And I literally, you know, just spoke on that on a video that I made the other day, which, you know, gave the description, which I got from Lori Ladd, but it was like, I get where we're all in this etheric, because it was my vision too, that we're on these different lanes. You know, we're talking about the divide, and the divide is everybody who's over here kind of choosing, you know, the old familiar ways and what's being programmed. And over here is the, you know, the 5D road, where it might be uncertain, because that's how my journey started. I just kept saying, people would ask me, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know, but I know I don't want this. I don't necessarily know where this road's going, but I don't want this road anymore.
Right.
And I think that's where that's where I'm gonna walk just to get my charger. But
yes.
So to me, it was about bravery. It was about taking those steps and going, I know that this is the road that most people are not on, but it feels best for me. And, you know, going into that higher consciousness, I think, is one brave choice after another, because when you're not following the masses anymore, when you can see through the facade, you really don't even have a choice. I mean, well, you do. I mean, you can just keep doing that, which many people do. And I did for a long time. I always say, you know, I was sleeping too. I remember I remember going, la, 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 I don't want to hear about that. I mean, literally, you know, when somebody would talk about they're poisoning food or they're indoctrinating children, or even, you know, God forbid somebody ever tried to share, you know, about the human trafficking or whatever. But when you're asleep and you just can't do that at that moment, we all had that time where it's like, la, 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 I just, you know, I can't. And we go about our business. But it seems to me that 2020 is nobody can go la, 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 la anymore, because it is literally in our faces. Everything that's coming up is being shoved in your face.
Even the masks are in our faces. And even in that suppressing our self-expression. You know, I wanted to go back because there's so many things to unpack and talk about here, but I first wanted to go back to you talking about when you know, got that cue that like that inner, you know, guidance system was fully operational, even though you're going la, 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 you know, at some point in your life, you don't want to hear. There is a point inside all of us when we say, I am not aligned with this job anymore. I'm not aligned with how I'm spending my time anymore. I'm not aligned with what I'm doing to make money, right?
Right.
And you listened, and what's amazing, like you said, I've seen it in my own life and I've seen it in many other people's lives. It doesn't always happen this way, but a lot of times it happens where the invitation, like that nudge or whatever you'd call it, that guidance that says, this is closing out. This chapter of my experience is closing out. You don't know what's coming yet, but you say yes first. Some of us say yes first, and then the inspiration to liquidate some 401k, and to me, that's how God's bank account came in behind you and said yes to that choice. You are aligned, you're on your right path, right? But you don't know that when you're typing up the resignation letter. You're typing that because it's so much more aligned than living the untruth of the lie that had become your life. And there are many people who are stepping up. And if you're listening and this is you, it doesn't mean we're telling you to quit your job tomorrow. It means listen with that greater discernment and listen inside, because this is where the guidance is coming from. It used to come through here, filter all the way around up here. We talk about it with a few other people. They give their opinions. Then based on their opinions and what this was swirling, we'd make it to some kind of decision. And often it might just be to stay small. 2020 doesn't support us to stay small. 2020 is all about this much larger expansion where we're stepping into our soul skills and who we really are. And we've talked about it, at least I've talked about it on Frequency Writer and in the blogs, but you know, this is our fifth chakra, our throat chakra, right? Which is mirroring like the fifth dimension, which is calling us out to express ourselves. And what do these masks do? And I know that some people might be watching this. Everybody has to make their choice right now. But when you are not living where your news is coming fully from here, and you're listening for what's the truth with a capital T and the lowercase truth that can be in propaganda, you know, there could be sources of news that aren't the full truth yet. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. What is that? Is that when you swear when you're in like a court of law? I don't even know, but I kind of know that phrase. You're going to testify to the whole truth and nothing but the truth. That is what 2020 is bringing, is the whole truth and nothing but the truth with a capital T. And that divine truth is coming through these light codes on the planet. It has been for many years now, an invisible revolution that's happening. And you can see the great divide between some people who are still in that third dimensional realm where you might, if you're one of those people, you might be receiving those cues and those codes like something's changing, something's happening, I'm not aligned with this anymore. And what I know in my own journey, it took getting to this place where I'd stuck my toes in the water of testing out uncertainty and making choices that were more aligned with myself, but they weren't going to rock my world. I practiced, I guess I'd say. I tested it out. But then there was this point in time when I knew that there was an alignment in my partner's job and and she was feeling that too. Her work, just like yours, was closing out at the end of 2017. We'd received the cues for a while, you can talk those cues away for a while. You had
Right.
a review. You had a federal review, and my partner was a government employee too. So she had, you know, federal obligations that she felt like
Yep.
she needed to stay through. And she was
Yeah.
kind of, I don't know what you'd call her, but she was one of the staff that had been there the longest. So she was a real presence where she was. And she was
Yeah.
still touching lives in the prison system where she was working. But there was this, we were both watching it. There was this call to create something together. We both felt this call towards expansion. And we were watching this, her world at work, contract and get
Yeah.
constricted and much
Yeah.
smaller. And she was
Yes.
having to be more of who she wasn't to go
Yes.
to work every day. And that sounds
Yes.
like just like what you felt. And yet
Yes.
when we made the decision to have her retire, because, you know, we have a lot of life force still in us. This wasn't
Yes.
retirement, but from
Yeah.
government service, this was retirement.
Yeah.
You had to step off the precipice now, like dipping our toes in the water was no longer the choice that we personally could be making, because the
Yeah.
signing to expand and grow our light much bigger and bring our messages much bigger in the world. You know, she was tied up 40 hours a week in that job. And
Yeah.
I'd imagine if you were full-time, something similar.
Yeah.
And so you're spending all of your most precious life force
Yep.
working for these larger systems that
Yeah.
maybe it's time for somebody else to get those jobs. You might have even left your job to create a space for somebody else to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You can do what you're going to do. And we're all meant to be listening to the new codes of where you're called to be. So I just want
Right.
to say it's awesome when I get to talk to people who were, you know, inching towards the precipice, you know, and then the quickening towards the precipice. And then like, I'm here at the precipice and I can no
Jump.
longer sit here and I can't take a step back from the precipice. I have to jump off.
I jumped. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you jump, there's something, it's wild. It's like, it's terrifying and exhilarating. I don't know that you
Yeah.
had any, were you terrified? You seemed pretty happy about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was, because I literally got to that point where it was like, there wasn't an alternative, because I really felt, and I'm glad you used the words that you did to describe your partner, because it really did feel like it was getting more and more and more restrictive. So there wasn't this choice. It just really, it felt like that was the end of me. Like I was dying and turning into something that it felt like that was a death sentence. And like I said, the other alternative, so it was about bravery. And I suppose my whole life, I've always been, you know, a little bit brave. When I start to feel fear is when bravery automatically steps in for me. You know, like I said, I ride a Harley. So I'm that person who goes in and out of traffic like, hey, see ya. So it was a like, and I went like that when you were talking, because that's what I literally had the image of, you know, somebody's got to catch me, because even if you don't, I'm going to go all the way down because my time is up. And I've had to do that a couple times, just that full body, full mind surrender of, you know, I can't figure out the rules, or this isn't making sense. So for me, that surrender happens a lot. I have to constantly go back, and it's part of the new operating system. So the surrender is coming up against my own opposition or resistance and going, okay, I can't get past it unless I dissolve myself. And the dissolving is the surrendering. And so it's sort of like a transformation into, and I've had enough experience with that over the last couple of years that it's second nature. And it's almost like it's now living in that faith. So I wanted to share one other example of how hard it is sometimes to pull out of that matrix, because you know, my funding was running, you know, it was running out. And so I did tap back in. I took 8 months off, and then I tapped back in. I got another job that was a little bit more freeing. You know, I thought to myself, well, now this is perfect. But I still ended up having struggles that I couldn't figure out. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I've been out of the game for a little while. I just kind of need to get back in it. And so I went 6 months, and then the pattern started repeating itself again. So here I am working from the heart, and here my clients are projecting and blaming onto me like I did something wrong. And I immediately remembered that red flag. I was like, you know, I'm not here to be shit on, for lack of a better word. You know, I'm not here to be projected on. Because I did that for 25 years. I don't want to do that anymore. And as soon as I started feeling that, I was like, okay, I gotta tap out again. So then I resigned from that. So that was only a 6-month job. And then I, you know, was again back around at the 8-month mark again. And I went, and then this beautiful opportunity presented itself. I mean, there was a $5,000 sign-on bonus. It was making more money. It wasn't what I wanted, but I was willing. I was at that place where it was like, okay, I'm willing. Maybe, you know, there's so many perks to this that I'm going to give it a try. So I didn't want to, but I did, because I was running out of money. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a try. So I took the job. I did 1 week at a separate place. It was an orientation. It turned out to be the absolute worst orientation I've ever had. It was nowhere near the level of professionalism that I had come from, but because it was at another facility, I kept going back, and I have to put on my armor every single day going, just hang on, Michelle, you're not to where you're going yet, but this is a very horrible experience. And again, I kept it to myself. And the reason I'm sharing this is because it can be considered very embarrassing and humiliating, but it ended up being a miracle. So I didn't like that experience very much. And I never even got to see an administrative person. And when I went to show up to work on Monday, nobody was there. Nobody was there, and it was a horrible experience. And it was one of those locked facilities. And even though I was there for a week, nobody ever gave me a badge, yet they gave other employees a badge, took me down into this place and said, well, you wait here while I go do this. And I had such a horrible week experience that I was like a little apprehensive to be left in a locked building. So I said, well, how about I, go wait up there? Long story short, I had said to a couple people, I would love to share with you guys my onboarding experience. And I said that to like 2 or 3 different people. Long story short, I got fired. I was a professional woman who never did anything to anybody, never deserved that. It literally took my legs out from under me, and I went, like, what the hell just happened? But I quickly settled in and went, okay, well, I didn't want this job anyway, but oh my God, I just got fired. I'm a professional licensed woman who literally didn't do anything, and now I just got fired. So I had to absorb that.
3D matrix, like kicking you out.
Yes.
It totally kicked you out.
Yes. So that was the door that shut, because I knew it with my career when I was in Head Start. That's why I resigned. When I got the second job that only lasted 6 months and it didn't feel good, I was getting closer. But then when I got fired, I was like, okay, I'm a little dense. My mom always said I needed to learn things the hard way, but it quickly came around. And then that turned out to be a blessing, which allowed me to then collect $750 a week. So
right.
that was the blessing of, I can't believe I got fired, and I don't even know, but I know it's a God thing, because I know it wasn't a rejection. I know it was a redirection, because it all happened. And then I got swept up in the Corona money, because I never thought about unemployment. It took me literally like 3 weeks to go, oh shit, I got fired. I could probably collect unemployment. And then I did that, and I got approved for it. And then all of a sudden, literally like 1 week later, is when all the Corona money started coming in. And when I got that message on my thing that said, $750 was just deposited in your account, I'm like, that's why they shut the door. Thank you, God.
Well, and 2 things, like, that's like God money, right?
Yes.
That's
my 5th dimensional money.
That's your 5th dimensional money. And also, when you went into that 3rd facility and the doors locked behind you, and you could feel that locking in and getting locked, and then they fired you from their locked building. I mean, it's such a metaphor from like 3D is being sealed, and you cannot choose this anymore.
Right.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
And for those listening, like, there's many people at this precipice themselves. There are so many people of like, I don't necessarily feel like Michelle does. Like, I know I need something different, but I don't have that bravery. I don't know how to turn that fear into bravery. I don't know how to make that conversion or make that alchemy happen for me. And the best thing that I can say, because it's so unique to each and all of us, right? We each are our own expression and we each journey these things differently. But you only really gain the skills by doing it. You become brave by taking the step off that precipice, whatever your precipice is, whether it's speaking up in your truth, whether it's refusing to wear a mask, if that's what aligns most with you, right? Whether it's, leaving your job or admitting a truth to yourself about something in your life that's out of alignment. Those are like multi-dimensional acts of bravery and spiritual fortitude. And we often don't have the soul eyes to see it. And Michelle, you're amazing because I think you have had this lifetime where you had this kind of inner strength, inner movement, something propelling you forward. And when things haven't been aligned, you've made choices. This was a big one though, to truly exit the matrix of, I need this job with my 401k security and all the attachments that I've been raised to believe about these things. Let's talk about health benefits, all the things that we think structure our lives. But as we make this move from this 3D to 5D realm, and of course, we're all on that bridge of 4D. We're all in 4D right now. Even if you think you're still in 3D, we have options to turn back to 3D every day.
Right.
But we really are on the bridge in between. And that world of 3D is going to keep crumbling and falling away. It is not templated in the divinity codes. It's templated in a false matrix. So now that we're at this time in the cosmological cycles, and for the 5D codes that we always were to reactivate inside ourselves, everything you try and turn back to, it may still be there today or a week from now, but if its foundational pillars are based in illusion, it's going to crumble. So some of us are the ones that have gone first or gone in this early wave, this first wave, second wave, third wave of finding a new path by listening for the breadcrumbs, right? Of how we're moving differently. I move entirely differently. And I wasn't even the one going into a 9-to-5 job before it was my partner, but our family was conditioned into that matrix. And I was raised by parents, one a teacher and one a government worker, who went into very structured jobs and had structured pensions and had that whole little, white picket fence vision of you're supposed to have this job for so many years and then you retire. And, that what we've been sold and told for so long is not the reality of the world we're living in.
Right.
And so, and then I just want to say to you, there was also this experience when you left, you had to go through this whole kind of detox process. There was like a multi-dimensional detox of probably getting the messages, like you had to deal with your own firing. Part of you was probably shocked and another part of you is celebrating. Like, right?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was absolutely floored. I mean, I had been fired when I was like 14 or 15, from a job that I goofed off from, but surely not from, my professional work, and nor did I ever expect it. So when it did happen, yes, I mean, I actually even recorded a video. I had to go right out into nature. I knew my alchemy process already. And so I sat with that feeling, and I felt the humility of it, but it was always, it was always, supported by, it wasn't deserved. So there was nothing to it other than it was a message. It was a message to me because, again, listening to what was in me, I don't even know how I kept going back day after day in that 1 week, because it was literally so horrible. It was almost as if I was on automatic pilot. So it was in hindsight where I went, I was made to walk that path so that I could get that absolute slap in the face, because that's literally what every lesson along my journey has been. because that's the way I set it up. That must be my soul contract, or I need it to be pretty darn obvious. You know, I need to be smacked in the face to go, nope, you're done. So that there was no doubt in my mind. So it didn't take me long. I didn't dwell in that spot. I literally just alchemized it. I had enough information to kind of bring into my awareness what it was, and to kind of name it, and to kind of sit with it, and then let it go. And like I said, part of that was making a video and kind of owning it right in the middle. And it wasn't until just a little bit longer I had to say, there's a reason for this. There is literally a reason for that, and it didn't present itself for a little while longer. But I knew that it was all part of my manifestation, because part of my manifestations and what I was focusing on was, to be given guidance, because I didn't have this clear picture. I didn't jump out of the matrix knowing exactly what I was going to do. Because really what I want to do, I mean, to be honest, to my truth, my big T truth is that I use the word retire. I'm only 52, but I'm tired. I'm kind of done. I don't want to be busy. I don't want to be doing. I just want to enjoy. Like, I remember the moment where I said, there was like this moment where I went, in the 3D world, I thought maybe I'd live to be about 70 or 80 or something. But there was literally a moment where I went, holy cow, I'm at the halfway point. I now believe I'm going to at least live to 100, because this was the first half of my life. And this like happened in 2018. I just kind of said, I want to live the second half of my life this way. And I just said it, and I just owned it.
By design.
Yes, yeah. I did. I just thought, so what? That's what I'm just going to dream. Because as I was putting this together, and as I was thinking, because I had to really go, I must have not really ever been a person who put dreams out in the world, because it was really hard for me to go, what do you want, Michelle? Michelle, what do you want? What do you want? And I kept remembering that one movie, what do you want? And I was like, well, it feels like what I want is wrong. I mean, so that was part of my programming, because what I want is just ease. I want to just be. I don't want to do. I don't want to do this or do that. I just want to be. I want to be free. I want to be joyful. I want to go out in the mountains. I want to go on the lake. I want to be by myself. And so I realized, holy cow, I'm doing that. I literally am doing that. And so I got to the point where I realized everything in my life right now, I manifested. I'm living my best life, because I had literally said, that's all I wanted. It wasn't big. It wasn't grand. I got rid of all my materialism 2 years ago during the big purge, where I literally pulled up one of those big garage things in my house, and I dumped everything. Wow. I got rid of things that I never imagined I'd get rid of, but I just I got rid of photographs, my own childhood photographs, because I was like, I don't need those things. Everything that I need will remain in here. I don't need them. So I purged, and I got to the point where I am more than happy just living simply. There's nothing grand in my life. I mean, I have the bare minimum, and I'm thrilled that I have a roof over my head, and a vehicle, and my dog, and, my food, and everything that I need. And that fills me up, and that reminds me every day of how blessed I am. So it's almost like I'm watering myself, I'm blooming myself. There's nothing in the outside that's necessarily nourishing me, but it's proving to me that that's what we need to do sometimes. We're like, I think of the lotus flower, and we are, this is the mud in the muck, but I don't feel lonely, and I don't feel, like I'm missing anything. What I feel is that I would like to start drawing like-minded people to me. So I don't sit in the energy of lonely. I sit in the energy of, all right, I can't wait until my tribe starts showing up, right. And the same.
And these are choices. That's what's so important too, is that you just follow that flow so naturally and so amazingly. And you're such an amazing languager and expresser of that. And, you know, people who are listening can just tap into that energy. You know, number one, you can tap into her channel on YouTube, you know, Upgrade in Progress 5D. But also, you know, there are people feeling lonely. And,
Yeah.
you know, what would you say to people who are going through that experience? Either they stepped off the precipice, or they're still in their jobs and they go in every day and they have people around them all the time and they still feel lonely. Because once
Right.
you start to leave the matrix, even if it's just in your consciousness and it's not yet physically in your life circumstances, you can feel that loneliness and that isolation initially in the ascension process.
Right.
Because it's by choice that you're leaving one world behind. It's
Right.
choice by choice. What would you say
Yeah.
about that loneliness? How did you move through some of that, or it really wasn't part of your experience?
No, loneliness was definitely a part of my experience. I think I originated from that place of recognizing that that I was alone, and that and one of the things I had shared with Marie before we turned it on was that I felt at that moment that nobody was choosing me. Like I didn't have anybody choosing me. And so that felt lonely. That was part of the beginning of sort of this process of that healing. And then I started realizing that what I needed was literally right there. And it started from the very beginning. I mean, it literally, I just recognized when I surrendered, and I was encapsulated by that love, and I was captured by that, that sense of divine protection and divine safety and divine support. I mean, I felt it right away. And that was really the foundation of helping me get through, of not feeling lonely, and sort of redefining that. And so I redefined it more in a way of knowing my own heart and knowing how much I love other people and how I see their souls. I don't judge. And when I know that about myself, then I was able to kind of flip it and go, it's not that other people won't come around me. It's literally that I'm in a different vibration and they don't know how to be around me anymore. It's a vibration thing, and it's a recognition that it doesn't vibe. So I was able to flip that around in a sense that made it appear as a positive thing. I mean, not like anything's wrong with those people who aren't around me anymore, but it just sort of felt like I was being elevated away from anybody who didn't have my best interest. And that was sort of the way I looked at it. Was there was no ill will intention in a lot of my friends or family. They don't know these things about themselves. So I had to be aware that, you know, they're not, they know not what they do. I mean, you know, they don't know that when they just want to vent to me that, you know, they're not flowing in their relationship. They're really just dumping. And that was part of my career. And that was part of what I did. And I didn't want that personally anymore, but yet that's kind of what I'd become. You know, people would they knew that they would come to me, but nobody was there to receive what I needed to share. I needed to flow too. But none of the relationship, they had always just kind of looked at Michelle as like, oh, I'm so glad you're there. You're so loving. You're so receiving. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I am. And I will always be. But since you're not, and I don't say this out loud, it was just my own dialogue going, okay, since you're not, I got to go and give myself what I give everybody else. It was my chance to go, you know, you give out love and you give out acceptance and you give out, you know, joy and whatever to others. And now, you know, shine it on me. And when I did, I was like, oh, I like this. Now I know why everybody likes to be in my energy. I get it now. So, and I always knew that. I mean, I could always sense when people were getting something from, you know, when you have that dialogue, you just feel good and you're like, yes, you know, this, I can tell this person appreciates me. We can feel it.
Yes.
And so I could not be around anybody, and even my own son, you know, didn't have that appreciation. Mm-hmm. And so I even had to kind of pull away. I don't reject him, or I'll always go near him, but I won't voluntarily go unless he says, hey mom, you know, do you want to come over? Because then I know he's appreciating my space. But for the most part, where he's at and what he needs to do, he can't sense it yet. So I'm just over here going, all right, you know, I'm still your mother, I still love you, but I'm not going to go into your space where you're hating on this person or that thing or that thing. And, you know, I can feel the 3D nature, you know, in his life. And it's like, he doesn't yet understand that. But it was, you know, again, kind of that loneliness is, I started with self-love, and I promise that when you start loving yourself and you get back into that place of, but this is what I want to do. This is what makes me joyful. This is what brings out the joy in me. And you can do that over and over and over again. Then you start realizing that it's not loneliness. It's just, you know, you got to get more creative. And it's an uncomfortable, because the example of the lanes is it's unfamiliar, and it's going to be unfamiliar in mind, body, and spirit. It's going to be unfamiliar. So it's okay to kind of travel back, you know, gather your belongings, you know, get your water bottle together, get your things that you need. I always say, get your snack and get your juice, you know, and hunker down and get in alignment and do some breathing and learn how to alchemize, and then get back, because the journey to the 5D is a lot of back and forth. It's like, woo, higher consciousness, oh, got knocked down. Higher consciousness, oh, back down. You know, and then it was just a matter of systematically, like, okay, I'm back down, but it's not as far down, you know, and I go back up and I'm in this higher consciousness, and then I'll come across somebody, it's like, I'm back down. Okay, and then next thing you know, it's like you just don't come down anymore. You just don't go into that energy
and where
anymore.
you can sustain your vibration in that higher place without judgment for other people, but you have become the embodiment of the joy or the freedom or the light or whatever it is that you desire. It's in you, and you don't have to use them as a reference point. And you don't, right? And you don't have to get called into where they're living. That can just be their experience, and you can witness that and you can honor that for them. But you know, you're living vibrationally in another sort of timeline and consciousness with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I liken this to, you know, it shocks my children to hear it because they've never seen it before, but I was a huge athlete in high school and college. Were you an athlete, Michelle?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
softball.
What was softball?
Softball.
Yeah, me too. I played softball and I played field hockey and I did one season lacrosse. But, you know,
Nice.
You think about especially for hockey for me, I know we had like these grueling preseason, like you would train and train and train to get back in shape for the season.
Yeah.
And no one bats an eye because it's the conditioning of this realm that you would prepare, right? You start out with like a 1 mile run, and the coach gets you, you know, a 2 mile run, then you're in a timed run, you know, and you're practicing. And just like an Olympic athlete, right? We don't just go out and perform at that high level without having many steps and that, you know, physical positioning and feeding their body what they need to perform at that level.
Exactly.
And when people look at this 3D to 5D kind of quantum leaping we're doing now, at wherever you are on the bridge of 4D and moving between the realms, there is this motor rehearsal. There is this like physical motor rehearsal. There's a conscious motor rehearsal. We're practicing vibrationally, trying on our fifth dimensional consciousness and our lives. And some are still like, you know, it's like in the same metaphor. It's like somebody who's preparing for preseason, say that, and they go out and they do their run once a week, right? And first practice is 2 weeks away. But there's somebody else that's running 3 days a week, and then there's somebody else that's running every single day, right? And you can just tell how well you're going to feel in preseason if you've done the work to sort of prepare your muscles to fire and wire together in the way you want to perform. And I hear you talking about your journey. It's very much like that. It's like that for all of us. We have to prepare, and 2020 has been an invitation to be preparing, and more events and things that are upgrading the human consciousness and the entire sentient collective. That means all beings, all life forms on this planet have a consciousness, And we're all rising to be this higher frequency that the earth is becoming again. She was the frequency before. We descended down into this lower matrix for whatever reason. That's like a whole other podcast series to talk about that. But we're rising back up out of that. We're coming back into alignment with the 5D earth. And this guy who is part of ECETI, ECETI, his name's James Gilliland. He's the one that said, we have to become frequency specific to the new earth. And if you're feeling those squeezes in your life, the squeezes are the frequencies within and around you that are summoning you home to this higher consciousness that you always were before you embrace the costume that you wear of somebody who works hard, somebody who goes into a job that you don't enjoy, you don't feel any passion for, but you feel like you need that paycheck. You know, things that we do out of obligation. Obligation is a word that's going to be obsolete. In the new earth, there is no obligation. So you know, we're following these breadcrumbs in our lives. Michelle, you're doing it amazingly well, you know, and we just have to step into it and have the experience. And all of a sudden, you're the next person living this 4D bridge, totally committed to moving to 5D and willing to witness the 3D bridge that we're all leaving behind. And the better we can become at getting more and more comfortable walking across that bridge or flying across that bridge. You can choose how you're going to do the walk, right? You can sail across, you can fly across, you can struggle across. It's definitely at your own level of consciousness if you want to resist the new way that's going to be the new way of being on this planet, or whether you want to join it, whether you want to consciously choose to say, I'm going to step into that every single day. And I love how you say, like, we go high and then we drop down low, and then we reset inside ourselves and we go to a higher place. And then we have an interaction with somebody who's swirling in the 3D kind of sea of vibrational soup is what I call it. And then you can stay there with them. You can hang out, you can have a campfire, you can stay for a couple weeks or longer. Or you can say, this was a nice visit. Glad we could share tea or coffee or whatever. And, and I'm going to go reset in my space because that's where I'm most aligned now. And when you're not in the place that's truly you, and maybe that's the note we want to end on talking a little bit about, is when you're not the frequency that you're being summoned to become, it's almost like you can feel yourself having something like the flu. I mean, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it. COVID has kind of given put a flu, like an umbrella over humanity, where that fear doesn't feel so good. I mean, that's almost like a version of the flu. You're not yourself when you're in that much fear. And I'm not saying that there isn't a virus on the planet. We all know that there is a virus. I'm just not so sure it's what it's hyped up to be, and that there aren't some distorted numbers. And state by state, in some of the news shows, the alternative news that I tune in, or the consciousness news that I tune into, I think there are more and more states, whether people ever hear it or not, saying, oh, we didn't get those numbers right? And now they're saying, we counted this whole batch of people that should never have been in the numbers. But does that get to most people's consciousness? Probably not. You'd have to be listening and be alert to that other news sources and your own news sources to say, what choices can I make that activate my passion and my joy and my alignment, my freedom? And how can I support that in other people? And I know that there's a lot of people who tune into Whole Soul Mastery, who tune into Frequency Writer, whether you're listening by podcast or you're listening on YouTube. However you're tuning in to channels like this and podcasts like this, that's the choice for us today. How do I want to feel today? What energy do I want to engage with today? What do I want to participate in today, right? And in 2018, basically, you gave yourself permission, and you went, I'm free, I'm back in the matrix, I'm free, I'm back in the matrix, right? We do it. I've done it with my partner. We've surfed that the last couple of years too. We're in, we're out, we're in, we're out. That's all to find the portal to do this, these vibrational practice sessions with ourselves, to grow our consciousness, where it gets so much more comfortable to be in joy all the time. And that's where we live more of the time. And we make choices, even though they're not always the most popular choices with our family members or people we know, we know how to make choices for our own alignment. And if
Yes.
everybody would do that, and less of policing each other or shaming each other or dividing each other, if we would just let us be ourselves. I celebrate you and all that you are, Michelle. Like, it truly, truly, and everything that you're expressing. I mean, we will come back and do this again. And
I look forward.
you have more to share just on that note of like making those choices that align for where you are going. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is every day, especially in the beginning of it. It is a constant reminder. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. And you said it very well. We're deprogramming ourselves. I mean, I recognize that we, have to intentionally recognize that we've been programmed by our parents, by our cultures, by our, and so we have these. And it's not until people, I think, are willing to just examine them. Nobody's saying you got to get rid of all of them. Just be willing to examine them and pull back a little bit. That's just where it starts. It starts very subtly, and it's kind of dripping out. But eventually, I think if we're putting out there, people like you and I, we're putting out there that this is the new realm it's felt, the higher consciousness, it's a felt thing. It doesn't come from here because there's too much conflicting information. And so, even some of the videos I put out, I encourage people to, how does that feel? How does it feel to know that? And I think I used the example in my last video of, to choose the mainstream, to choose and keep going down that lane is it's like vanilla ice cream, and you will forever be vanilla ice cream because they're telling you, don't worry, just settle in. We'll take care of you. It's in your best interest. I got it. And we're going to serve vanilla. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. When you start to question, then that's when you can start to, realize that there's another lane over here. But this lane is vanilla. And you're only going to get vanilla because that's what they're telling you. And they're going to change it up. They're going to say, it's vanilla. And then it's going to be, vanilla with sprinkles. And that's going to be the vaccine. But somebody else is driving your vehicle in this lane. So anybody literally, and it's not a judgment, but anybody who is behind a mask right now, somebody else is driving your vehicle. You're allowing them to drive a vehicle. And we all did. I did too, because I trusted that who was driving the vehicle really did have my best interest. But now what we're finding out and what's coming into light in 2020 is many of us are realizing that who's driving that is not in our best interest. And that, I think, is the difference. We all believed that was a benevolent source, and they really did. But what's coming up when people start realizing the breadcrumbs are there to say the people driving this, they're not taking you to the merry-go-round, sweetheart. They're taking you to the factory.
Yeah.
Whatever they used to call it in Nazi Germany. And
yes.
I don't mean to sound harsh, but that's sort of, when you pull it back, that's what that is, because it's all touted under, but it's in your best interest. You need to put on the mask because it's in your best interest. Well, it's not. That's not what's in my best interest. How do I know? Because I'm a sovereign being. I know my body, I know my mind, and I know my spirit. And nobody can tell me what's in my best interest. And when people get to that point where they want to tell somebody else what's in their best interest and not be told, then that's when they're going to switch lanes. That's when you're going to be ready. But it's okay. Again, there's no judgment. Many of us want to be taken care of and, think we're going to just be gently led down that row your boat. But unfortunately, there's a big ass waterfall that's coming. So
right.
Y'all need to get off that log.
Right. Well, and that's kind of
how does it feel?
Living comfortably, which we've all been conditioned for comfort. We've been conditioned that we're creatures of comfort.
Yeah.
But really, 2020 is reminding us that we're creators of clarity and creativity and innovation and all these things. And you can't be in Comfortville for
Right.
very long and be creating this new paradigm that is requiring our skills and our talents and our heart center and this working together from a higher place. And when you enter that place, you know, we invite anybody to just sort of dip your toes in the water. It's okay if you're believing and really sort of wedded to the comfort.
Yeah.
Just allowing yourself to see a little bit broader, to expand your vision a little bit, to try out a couple things, to choose another flavor, to use your metaphor other than vanilla, and branch out, or wear different colored clothes. Like, you know, if you always wear blue, wear red, you know, just, you know, whatever that might be for you, is to branching out and trying on self-expression, because the masks are really the ultimate, one of the ultimate culminations of a realm that has tried to oppress and silence us and keep us conditioned in the matrix so we could be worker bees in it. And if you really stop and think about it, did source energy, the creator of all of this vast creation, right? Is that really what we're supposed to be doing? Is kind of like these factory workers, and we go in and we punch in and we punch out, and it's kind of this soulless living. I'm not saying everybody feels that way about their job, but if you don't feel excited about punching in and punching out and clocking in and being, you know, watched by a supervisor and evaluated whether you did whether they liked how you performed your job. Right? All of that brings in all of these judgment, and kids in schools, you get an A, you get an F, like all these evaluative measures, which is saying somehow some of you are the chosen ones and some of you unfortunately just aren't. And you can look at that in, like, you know, racial disparities. You can look at it about socioeconomic disparities in the world. You know, you just look around. I think we can all see it. And we're invited to play in this new playground, which is, you know, we're all strangers that we just haven't met yet. And, you know, we are coming into an awareness of, even if we don't know each other's names, we know each other by our energy. And what energy do you want to be putting out? Because that's your signature. That's how people are. We're not going to need business cards in the new earth. We're going to recognize each other by frequency. And that's how I found you, Michelle, and you found me. I mean, we each kind of, you were watching my videos when I didn't know you were watching, but you would comment and post, and there was something about your frequency that I actually like clicked your YouTube, you know, your name, and it took me to your YouTube channel, and I've been listening to your YouTube videos since. And that's what we're doing, is we're recognizing each other by frequency, and we have to give ourselves permission to shine. And you've been talking about that. You know, there is this time where I don't want to be small. I want to shine, whatever that looks like. And it's a self-discovery process. We're just beginning. We're still, we're like scratching the surface here. Like, you know, knowing who you are, Michelle. You're just beginning to really play in those frequencies. And me too. I'm playing a frequency writer and Whole Soul Mastery and these other platforms to find this way to express as the vessels and instruments that we are, what we are. And that can't be suppressed. Like, you can't put a mask on that, or we're not shining, right? Why put a mask on a candle, right? The candle's going to burn right through it and say, I'm sorry, I'm designed to shine. That's us. Like, that's who we are. So thank you, Michelle, for being here today. It's so amazing to be in this podcast, to finally meet and connect, and to share these messages and to co-create together. That's where also the marrow of the joy comes through. And I'll definitely have to have you back and in these conversations, and hopefully a roundtable soon where we get some more voices sharing different perspectives from, you know, this whole journey that we're making, this rising. We are activating our wings. And And so you can find out more about us, about Whole Soul Mastery at wholesoulmastery.com. We're really most active right now on YouTube. So find us on YouTube and subscribe, please, to this video. Like and share this video with your friends and social media networks so other people can receive this inspiration too. And Michelle, your Upgrade in Progress 5D on YouTube. Do you have a website?
I'm actually on YouTube. I think it's just Upgrade in Progress. On Instagram, it's at Upgrade in Progress 5D. And I do have a website, and that is www.upgradeinprogress.com.
Awesome.
So I am the upgrade in progress. I latched onto that a couple years ago. I knew instinctively that we were upgrading even before this language started coming out. So it's see, I'm just one of those examples of, I changed my name on Instagram from Lady Writer to Upgrade in Progress in 2018 because I somehow instinctively knew something was happening. Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
It is amazing. We know, and then the confirmation comes. That's like we say yes, and then the confirmation comes, and the support comes. So
yeah, it's kind of, so I want to thank you, Maria. It's been a pleasure talking with you and meeting with you for the first time, and I look forward to doing this again in the future. I hope I get invited to do a roundtable or something else because I really like the way that this feels. It really feels like it was a really good flow, and it was something that I needed, and it feels good to just share my experience. So if anybody wants any information or if I can be of service in any way, you can catch me at any one of those venues. And even my website, I've got it set up to where my services are on donations because I just, I don't want to be in a place where, people can't pay or don't want to or whatever. I mean, I just want to be of service. So I just set it up to where it's just donation. And if you can't, then that's okay. Just, give me a call and we'll connect. I'm easy. I'm free flowing.
And that's the vibe. I mean, that's the vibe that we're all tuned into. And I think, and we'll talk more, maybe that's another podcast we'll have about that sense of cosmic wealth or that greater wealth and abundance that we're sharing, that it goes beyond the money and the income streams. We recognize we need the 3D income streams to pay 3D mortgages and rent and things like that. But more and more, we're vibrationally quantum leaping past that into new quantum financial systems. And that's another topic for another day. So really. So, well, it's so fun to play in this playground with you. Thank you, everybody. And until next time, blessings. Namaste.
Thanks, Marie.